Okay, so just to let you know that this session is being recorded, and if you don't want your face to be shown, then feel free to switch your video off. It's basically a webinar about how to get your survey licenses, and I thought it might be useful for some people to hear this, so I am going to be recording it for those that are missing it tonight, and hopefully you'll find it useful. So first of all, has anybody already got a survey license? Do you want to put your hands up? Okay, so I'm talking to, nobody's got a survey license yet. Okay, right, so that's good, at least I know that. And what licenses would you most like to get? So if you want to put something in the chat, or just unmute yourself, and hi Mark. You can either put something in the chat or unmute yourself and just say which license you think you might want to go for. Or if you just don't know and you just want me to tell you about licenses, and then you can see which ones you think you're going to go for. Has anybody got one they particularly want to do? Dormouse, great crested newts, bats. Okay. You don't really need a badger one. So who said that? Kanishka, you don't need a badger license. I'll make a note of that because I'll explain that. Badger. Okay, yeah, so it's basically protected species that we want our licenses for. So I'm just going to have a look. Most people want bats or great crested newts and dormice. Sophie's got a great crested newts license but wants to get bats and dormice. And some people are working towards their licenses, so that's good. Okay, right, so you don't need a water vole license either, but I think if you're going to do licenses like for development, I think you probably need a license for that, but you don't need one to actually do the surveys. Okay, so I'm going to just make a start, and the idea is that I'm going to let you know a little bit about survey licenses and why you need them, and then we're going to talk about the specific species and which ones maybe you could start to work towards, and what to expect really. So a survey license is basically a license that allows you to survey a particular protected species, and typically they are bats, great crested newts and dormice. Those are the big three, and basically that's because the survey methodologies involve disturbing the animals, and therefore you can't really do them without a license. Okay, so that's why I said you don't need one for water voles and you don't need one for badgers, because you can actually do a survey without disturbing them, in the opinion of Natural England or their equivalent. So the same for otters, you can do an otter survey without a license, so you don't really need licenses for many species. So the reason why you need a license is because to do the surveys of bats, great crested newts or dormice, you actually have to disturb them during the survey methodology. So for example, with great crested newts, if you're doing bottle trapping, you're actually trapping the animal, you're going to be handling it and disturbing it. Also, if you're using a net to catch one, you'll be disturbing it, or even if you're looking for eggs, you're disturbing a life stage of the great crested newt and could potentially kill it by unpeeling it from its leaf. So I think it's a good idea to to get your survey licenses so you can actually do these surveys. Now, one thing that's good news about this is you can work with someone who has a license, so you can get experience and you don't need a license for that. So if you're going to do a great crested newt license, or if you're going to do a great crested newt survey or a bat survey that involves going into a roost, for example, then you wouldn't need to go with someone that has a license, and that's how you get your experience really, is to go out with other people that have a license already. And actually what you need is the signatory of 2 people that have seen you work with that particular species. So you need to get a fair bit of experience before people are willing to sign you off. And so it's a good idea to start getting to know your local people that are dealing with these species and get out with them. Okay, and so to get your license, it's free, it doesn't cost you anything. You have to have an application form which you fill out, and you have to show that you have some knowledge. So usually they like to see that you've done a course. So just to let you know that we do ecology and surveying courses for great crested newts, dormice and bats. So if you wanted to do the course that kind of gens you up on the ecology of the species, the legislation and all of those things which you would be required to know about, we do those as taught courses and online courses. So yeah, so head over to our website if you want to find out more about that. So you need 2 signatories from 2 people. And in the olden days when I trained, which is about 20 years ago, so I haven't really introduced myself, and I know some of you don't know me. I'll do that in a minute. But back then it was quite easy to get a license, and I think it's got harder because most people that are going to sign you off would like to see you on many, many visits before they're happy to sign you off. I mean, I got my Dormouse license on a certificate from the Dormouse course and a signatory from someone that saw me handle a Dormouse once. Okay, and now you have to probably do a whole survey season with people. And also Natural England doesn't accept certificates from courses anymore, but they do expect you to do a course. So yeah, so there are some sort of training requirements that you need to do in there, and that's why we've designed our ecology and surveying courses, to make sure that you've got that background knowledge for those species. Okay, so you're probably thinking, well, how do I get a license then? So first of all, you need to decide which one or ones you want to work towards. And I would say definitely work towards those big 3. Is anybody up in Scotland or Ireland? No? Okay. Yeah, so it's a bit different up in Scotland because they don't have dormice. So we don't recommend that you go for dormice. And I don't think they've got very many, if any, great crested newts either, but they've got other exciting things like Scottish wildcats, lots of otters, and they've got water voles and even beavers and things like that. So yeah, so if you're sort of south of, let's say, Yorkshire or the Lake District, then I would definitely start thinking about going for great crested newts, bats and dormice. Okay, so I think I'll just go through each separate species and talk to you about how to get each one, because obviously you'd have to have a slightly different strategy for each species. And I think it's important to sort of understand how to approach each one, because they'll need a different approach for each one. Okay, so I'm going to start with great crested newts. So great crested newts are a very large newt species that lives kind of more to the east and the central part of Britain. We hardly have any down here in Devon. So I'm based down in Devon, and we've got a few places in Devon, but hardly any at all. So if you're in what I call great crested newt land, which if you go and look at a distribution map of great crested newts, then you'll be able to see whether you are in great crested newt land. And if you are, then definitely start going for this license. Okay, so as I said before, you'll need to do a course, because Natural England likes to see that you've attended a course, and we do have an online course on that one, as well as a taught course, although the taught course is now full. And because there's a short survey season, it's not so easy to get another date in before the end of the survey season. So if you want to go for your great crested newts, you need to really start being proactive around sort of January, February time and trying to find people that do great crested newt surveys, because the survey season ends around June time. Okay, although there is some great crested newt work to be done, like translocations and pitfall traps and things like that, the main survey season is all about surveying the ponds and the animals that are in the pond. So we use several different methods, like bottle trapping, torching, which is where you shine a bright torch and you count the number of individuals in the pond, and also netting if we can't use bottle trapping. So bottle trapping involves a plastic bottle that's on a stick. And if you have a pond liner, you can't use bottle traps because the stick needs to go through the mud at the bottom of the pond. And if it's got a pond liner, you're just going to puncture it. So then you would use netting instead. And the other method that we use is egg searching. So you just look on a few plants in the sort of margins of the pond and you see if you can see any eggs. Okay, so you have to know how to identify the different types of newt eggs. And that's covered in the course. So the most people that are doing great crested newt surveys are the consultants. Okay, so consultant ecologists. So I think probably your best bet is to go to get in touch with your local consultancies and just sort of say, I'm really interested in great crested newts. It would help if you've done a course. You can say, I've done a course on them and I'm really interested in great crested newts. Is there any surveying work that I could get involved with? And then hopefully they'll say yes, and you'll get a chance to do that. So is there anybody who's managed to get some great crested newt survey work? I'd like to hear how you got it. Stefan, did you say you were doing great crested newt surveys?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I've been surveying for a consultancy, on a freelance basis for the last 2 weeks, and I've done one eDNA survey, which doesn't involve any contact with the newts or any disturbance. You're just sampling the water in a potential great crested newt pond. So that's all I've done so far, and I'm going to be doing another one tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's fine. Thank you. Emily, have you done some?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to bring people's awareness to the fact there's a Plant Life are offering a free training course on great crested newt training on Saturday the 24th, 2 till 5, with a nighttime monitoring session, and at Braunton Burrows in Devon. And they're looking for people to carry on doing great crested newt surveys in the Dynamic Dunescapes project.
All right. So what's that? Plant Life, did you say?
Yeah, Plant Life. Or the I also got the details from Devon Reptile and Amphibian Group. Okay. Yeah, but that's quite cool. So Saturday night.
Okay. So that's in Devon, which is not very handy if you don't live in Devon, but that's really interesting. Thank you. Does anybody know of anyone else that's doing survey work that might want to tell other people about it? Because this is if you know anything, then it would be nice if you could share it with other people. One that I do know of is NARS, which is the National Amphibian and Reptile Recording Scheme. So it's NARRS. I'll put it in chat. NARRS. So NARS is the National Amphibian and Reptile Recording Scheme, and under normal circumstances, no COVID, they usually do train people up to do the national survey, and I know they've done it in lots of different counties. So they do the training, and then you can work under their license. So as long as they're happy with the fact that you've done the training with them, then you can work under their survey license. So that's another thing, is once you get to a point where somebody feels like you're competent, i.e. they might have trained you or taken you out several times, it might be that they'll actually give you permission to work under their license, and that's a good way to get experience as well. So I've worked I worked for a while under my colleague's license for great crested newts, and that was really handy. And she worked under mine for bats as well. So it is a way that you can actually get the surveys done if you're needing to do surveys. So what happens in that case is you actually have to get the licensed person to write a letter that's giving permission for you to work under their license, and that they're happy for you to, that you're at the competence level that they think you'll do a good job, sort of thing. So when you first start out, it might be worth getting a course under your belt and going and doing some training where you actually go and do some surveys, and then maybe you can work under other people's licenses once they're happy with you. All right. Yeah, so I think NARS is a good one, and normally they are doing training, but I understand that with the COVID situation, I don't think they have been doing training. So I know a lot of you are going to say, oh, it's been really difficult to get going with my license this year because, in the last 12 months because of COVID. And we're just going to have to suck it up, because there's absolutely nothing we can do about that. If nobody's doing any surveys, then there's nothing we can really do about it. So I do think that the consultancies are still just as busy as they always were. So they are a good bet for you. Okay. So has anybody approached their local consultancies and had a sort of a no or a yes, or has anybody approached local consultancies? So Kanishka, you have? Did you? I saw you nodding, because I can't see anybody else nodding because they haven't got their videos on.
Yeah, I mean, I approached one consultancy in North Surrey and another one, which is Arctech, which is all over the UK, but just for seasonal surveying positions, mostly for bat surveys. So
Okay.
I haven't heard back yet. It was very recent, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Can I just say there's a company which is working on HS2,
Yeah.
which is looking for people to do new surveys.
Do you know the company's name?
Constantly. Yeah, they're called Ecologists, which is ECOSULIS. ECOSULIS. I actually turned them down because they didn't want to pay your travel costs. So for me, it was a bit of a hike. I would have just broken even every day. They pay you, it's 0 hours, but they don't pay your travel costs. Okay.
Which is okay if it's up the road, but if it's a long way, yeah. Okay. So do you know which branch of Ecologists that was? Because I think they have several.
Okay. I think it's
there's one in Bath.
Aylesbury, maybe, if they've got a branch there. That's where the job was based. Sorry, I don't know where it is, but they'll know as soon as you contact them, because they're actively looking. As soon as I turned them down, they basically then offered to pay my travel, which I was a bit miffed by, which is like, they're obviously, scraping the barrel a little bit.
Yeah.
But they're definitely looking for people, because I think a lot of people they had maybe have found something better, once they start.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, people do offer 0 hours contracts, but I mean, at least they're paying you to do the surveys, aren't they? I mean, that's the ideal. If you're doing it for NARS, you're not going to be paid.
No, they're paying you, and you're getting obviously very intensive experience on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so if anyone's near HS2, that hideous railway, then I'll just put that to Matt. Sorry,
I'm just going to look up where it was, the office.
Okay.
One second.
Sorry, I put Ecologists to one person, not to everybody. So let me put it in. Ecologists in Aylesbury. HS2 Great Crested Newt.
I think it's the Oxford office.
Right. Okay.
And it's a guy called Josh Plaister. He's the recruitment manager.
So I'll just put that in chat here.
I'll put it in chat.
Okay. I just realized that if someone's just typed something, when you type in it, it just types to that last person. So you select everyone, and then we can all see that. Okay, I've put it in. I'll just do that. Is that correct? What I've just put in? Oh, I haven't spelled ecologists correctly.
It's all right, I'm putting it in, Sue.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's a top tip then. So if you're in that area, it might be worth getting in touch with ecologists. And I think, be a bit tough with people that aren't paying you mileage and stuff like that. I mean, they need to pay you as well. So people will probably be going, okay, what about how much do I charge for them? So what are you charging them? Or did they have a standard rate that they offered you?
Yeah, they just offered a standard rate, which was, I don't know, £10.50 or something an hour. Yeah.
Thieving git.
Well, that is actually the standard rate for what I'm finding from ringing around people for 0 hours surveying.
Right. Okay. Well, the consolation is that it's better than doing it for free, and I suppose £20 if you're doing a 2-hour survey is better than nothing. I mean, when I got my bat license, it took me nearly 3 summers, and I actually had to travel a lot and give up a lot of time, and I didn't get paid for any of it.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, but anyway, that's a good tip. So they're paying about £10.50, did you say, an hour for that? Okay, let's put that in there as well. I'm just doing this because if anyone wants to watch this again, I'll put the chat up, but also that there'll be people missing this, so we'll share the chat. Okay, Emma, you've got something to say.
Yeah, so I'm on a Facebook group called British Ecologists, and there was a post about the company called E3P, the Manchester-based one. They were looking for assistance for bat surveys. So I contacted them, and I'll be doing one of the bat surveys in May. It is paid, it's 0-hour contract. And if I had a car, the mileage would have been paid, but I will do the car sharing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's a good tip, actually. I'll just put that up on the chat. So Facebook group, British Ecologists. And
I can
there's
put
another
his email if you want, or...
Yeah, okay. Yes, please.
Okay, I'll do that.
The Facebook group, British Ecologists, it's worth joining that one. Make sure you just find it and request to join, and they'll let you in. That's fine. But also there's one called UK Ecology Jobs and Courses. That one also has people asking for assistants and surveyors and stuff like that. So it's quite a unique situation now, because when I first started out, it was all about meeting people and finding people and actually physically trying to find people, and now you've got social media, and you can even put a message up on these boards, and I've seen people put messages up. Hi, I'm based in blah, please, if anyone's got any surveys that they need a hand with, I'm very keen to help out, and I particularly want to do my dormouse bats and great crested newts, and just see if anything comes of it. And you should get several responses, I would have thought, or they'll refer you to people that are looking for things. So it's like this hive mind, it's like this big web of people that know each other, and I think it's really worth joining in those 2 Facebook groups, and keeping an eye on them every day, really, because a lot of messages go through. I think there's quite a few thousand people in those groups now, and a lot of messages go through in a day, so it's worth just keeping an eye on it every day. So Kate's put here Ecosa are looking for jobs for people as well, so that's good. Okay, good. So with the great crested newts, you're going to have quite a number of surveys with at least 2 people. Okay, they used to accept a certificate from a course or the signatory from a course tutor, and they are definitely not doing that anymore. We had several rejected last year, and it was a bit embarrassing really, because we'd said that it would be fine and actually it wasn't. So it seems to be that some people seem to be able to get through and other people don't, and I think it's because whoever's desk it lands on in Natural England, if you're lucky, it'll be someone that doesn't mind a certificate or a tutor's signature, and if it is somebody who minds, then you won't get it. And I think that's really unfair, because, you know, why should it matter? Why should some people get through and other people not? So I'm just warning you that by all means you can try sending in your certificate for your course, but you probably won't get your license on that basis. Okay, so have a think also about whether you've got a local amphibian and reptile group. So in Devon, it's called DRAG, Devon Reptile and Amphibian Group. They usually have quite amusing names. So there will be people doing reptile and amphibian work, and it's definitely worth joining in with them. And there might also be local nature reserves or places where they're doing regular great crested newt surveys. So it's worth getting in touch with your local wildlife trust or keeping an eye on what people are doing in your local reserves. Okay, has anybody got any other experiences on great crested newts that they could offer to everybody, or shall we move on? Okay, so thank you everybody for contributing to that. It just goes to show that it's not just me that knows stuff. You all know something as well. So please do chip in if you think you can help the group, because obviously we're here to help each other as well. Okay, so I'm going to go on to dormice, and so when you do a survey for a dormouse, you need to put up a tube, a nest tube, or a nest box. So if you're doing the National Dormouse Monitoring Scheme, it's a nest box check, and that involves lifting the lid of a box, looking in and potentially disturbing a dormouse. And then you also need to handle the dormice, because you need to weigh them and sex them. So you definitely need a license for that. And if you're doing the Dormouse National Dormouse Monitoring Programme, so NDMP, then you will need to go out with a dormouse worker, basically. In Devon, so I don't know if it's the same for every county, but in Devon, it's the Wildlife Trust. It's somebody at the Wildlife Trust who is coordinating the dormouse surveys. So if you get in touch with the local Wildlife Trust, they might know who is kind of Mr. or Mrs. Dormouse in the county, even if they aren't doing it themselves. I know in Surrey there is an actual dormouse group, and somebody that was a student on my certificate in ecological consultancy about 4 or 5 years ago, called Catherine Kilner, runs the dormouse, the Surrey Dormouse group. So I'll just put that in the chat. Surrey Dormouse group. So it's £5 to join the group, and they do nest box checks throughout the year. So with the Dormouse National Monitoring, you have to do surveys from April to October. So you've got quite a few opportunities to go out, whereas with the great crested newts, you've really only got from February to about June when you can go out and do surveys. So you might have to say to yourself, okay, I might not get enough experience this year with great crested newts because A, we've got COVID, B, I've got to get my act together, C, I've got to find somebody to go out with, D, I've got to go out enough times for them to be happy. So it might be one that, you know, you need to carry over until next year. But I think if you look up Surrey Dormouse Group, you should be able to get the email for that, and I have got it somewhere. I'll try and put it up at the end. I'll see if I can find out what it is. So yeah, so if you're in the Surrey area, or even if you're in the periphery of the Surrey area, then it's worth getting in touch, because this is a person who is actively happy to sign people off for their dormouse license. Okay, so again, it's a good idea if you have your course under your belt, because there's a lot you need to know for your dormouse license. So we do an online and a taught dormouse ecology and surveying course. Oh, thank you. Somebody, Kanishka's put it up. Thank you. So there is a thing called a Dormouse Training Logbook, which you can get from PTES. So People's Trust for Endangered Species. So PTES, Dormouse Training Log. So you just Google Dormouse Training Log and you'll get this little booklet with a little dormouse drawing on the front of it. And basically all the training that you need to do is logged in there, and you can get it signed off by different people. So you need to get that printed out really and start trying to find somebody that does dormice and get your dormouse log signed off. And if you do the course, the online or the taught course, then you can send your dormouse log to me to get things signed off, because there's quite a number of bits that need to be signed off by a course tutor. And so it's definitely worth doing that. Okay. Oh, there, Kanishka's got the Dormouse Training Log. Can you see that? It's a cute little booklet thing, and it's just got different things in there that you have to do to be able to get your license. Now, PTES are really, the national lead on dormice, and they have got some excellent training videos on how to actually do a dormouse survey. And they do some little short sort of 3-minute videos and taking you through all the different stages of a survey and how to approach the box, how to get the box off the tree if you've got a nest in there, how to inspect the box, how to handle the dormice, how to weigh them, all of those things. So do get yourself onto the PTES Dormouse Training videos. So that, I think they're just called Dormouse Training videos, and go and watch those. Okay. And also PTS, if you're sort of drawing a bit of a blank, it might be worth getting in touch with them to find out who your local dormouse workers are and who's doing the NBM, National Dormouse, I never get it right, National Dormouse Monitoring Programme, NB, anyway. So yeah, so it's worth getting in touch with them, because they basically instigated the whole training log idea, and they also want want people to be trained up properly on all life stages of dormice. So dormice are active from April to October. So as long as you can find a dormouse worker or two, then you can get your license and do it that way. So has anybody managed to get any experience yet with dormice?
Yeah, haven't had a chance to go out, but I've obviously I've done the online course and got bits signed off on that one.
Yeah.
Haven't had a chance to go out with it yet.
Okay. Yeah. Have you got someone you can go out with yet? Or?
Well, in work they did ask me for dormice, to join on like a tube putting ins on the 10th next month, but I'm scheduled in for statics. And they get dibs on me, unfortunately. So.
Oh, right, okay. So what I would say is that if you're just doing tube surveys, you're less likely to get dormice than you are with boxes. Okay, so the boxes are the National Dormouse Monitoring Programme, and the tubes are the consultants' survey to find out if there's dormice on site. So in this particular species, you're going to find that the consultants come across dormice a lot less than the people doing the national monitoring. The national monitoring is on dormice sites, so you should be seeing them. Okay, so Sophie's helped with plenty of dormouse surveys but never had any dormice. Oh, you need to see if you can find another site to go to where they do find dormice, which is a bit of a shame. Yeah, so you need to get some field experience really. Try and find out who your local dormouse workers are, and usually they're happy to let people tag along and do a few surveys, and just take your dormouse log with you and get that signed off when you've done all the different things within the log. Okay, so yeah, so I think that's probably all I want to say about dormice. Is anybody, so some people have managed to get some experience but not, or some people have done a course but haven't seen any dormice, or they done some surveys but haven't seen any dormice. So that's another frustrating thing, isn't it? If you're sort of managing to organise to actually do some dormouse surveys and then you don't actually find any dormice, that's really frustrating, isn't it? So yeah, it took me not that long to get mine because, as I said, in the olden days, it was far easier to get the license. I literally just went on a course and went out with somebody once, and all they wanted to know was whether I could handle a small mammal competently, because some people are absolutely terrified. When I went on the course, they had some dormice that they were, because they do captive breeding, this particular tutor, and there were grown men and women shaking at the thought of picking up a dormouse, and literally they don't even bite or anything, they're just really wriggly, but I literally saw some of my friends, because I think I did my course with the Mammal Group, the whole Mammal Group went and did the course. So Mammal Groups are a good place to have a look for as well, your local Mammal Group. And people were physically shaking at the thought of picking up this animal. And because I'd always been somebody that had every pet you could possibly imagine, like mice, rats, snakes, gecko, just like hissing cockroaches, African land snails, dogs, cats, rabbits, guinea pigs. Picking up an animal was nothing for me, and I just thought, well, just pick it up like that, and it wasn't a problem at all. And so the person that I went out with was quite happy to sign me off straight away. But I think now they've brought in this Dormouse log, which has to go with your application. They want you to have seen different life stages. So they want you to have seen pink babies, furry babies, active babies. They want you to have seen different types of nests within the boxes. So sometimes you get bird nests or wood mouse nests. Sometimes you get a bat in there. Sometimes you get bumblebee nests, hornets nests, all sorts of things like that. So I think they just want to sort of show you to be able to show that you've got some experience, really. So again, this is not going to be a quick thing to get, is it? First of all, you've got to find somebody to take you out, and then you've got to find another person to take you out. So hopefully if you're in something like a mammal group, or if there is a dormouse group, they might be able to help you with getting your second signatory. Or if you're working in consultancy, you might have a colleague that has a dormouse license who will take you out on a few surveys, and then you go and do some national monitoring with another dormouse worker to get your second signatory. So usually if you're working in consultancy, it's a bit easier to get at least one signatory from a colleague. But unfortunately, you can't get two signatories from two colleagues. So they have a rule about that. So it has to be somebody outside of your organisation as well. And that's the same for all licenses. Okay, so any other questions about dormouse licensing? So there's some good documents that you could look at. We've got the Dormouse Conservation Handbook. I'll just type that into the chat. Dormouse Conservation Handbook. It's a little bit out of date, and it's very out of date with the legislation. So don't even look at the legislation because it's rubbish. But it's got all sorts of stuff about the how to do the different survey methods, and about habitat management and their ecology and stuff like that. So it's definitely worth reading that one. I think most people, if they're taking you out, would have expected you to at least have a copy of it, even if it's a digital copy. You don't need to have a hard copy necessarily, and have a bit of an awareness of it. And a course as well is useful. So like I say, we do the online Dormouse ecology and surveying course, and we do a taught one as well. At the moment we're having a bit of a problem because as we get to our courses, we're having to postpone them to the end of the year. So if we've got 12 people on this course and we've got a date in October, then that course might already have 6 on it, and we can't have 18 on the course. So it's like, we're trying to organise extra dates and things like that. But unfortunately, with the Great Crested Newts, it's not been possible because the survey season's shorter. But with dormice and bats, it is easier for us to get some dates later on in the year. Yeah, so any other questions about dormice? Okay, happy with that. Right, so we'll go on to bats, and I got my bat license. So I'm Sue Searle, by the way. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a principal ecologist at Ecology Training UK, and I ran a company called Acorn Ecology for 17 years as well. And I've had my bat license for 18 years as well. So when I first started consultancy, I didn't have my bat license, but I got it fairly soon afterwards. So again, it's a European protected species like the dormice and the great crested newts, and it's a disturbing survey method. So if you want to go into a bat roost where bats are actually living, then it's worth having a license, or you have to go with someone who has a license. There are quite a number of things you can do for getting experience that don't require a license, and those include emergent surveys and activity surveys. So you don't need a license to do those because they're non-disturbing. What you need a license for is handling bats and entering a bat roost. Okay, so at some point, if you're doing any sort of consultancy work, for example, or bat work, you will need to go into a bat roost, and that's where you need your license. Okay. So the way I got my license was every time I got a bat job, because I set up a consultancy and I was getting all these jobs and most of them seemed to be bat jobs, was I had to hire a bat worker to come with me every time. And actually that bat worker was one of my signatories in the end. So that was the way that I got it in the end. But you need to just make sure that you have at least 2 people that will sign you off. So I would say a good starting point is to join your local bat group. And if your local bat group isn't very active, then maybe join one in a neighbouring county, or, you know, something like that. So you might be on the edge of 2 counties, and I would definitely join the 2. In Devon, I think we've got about at least 3 bat groups, because everybody has rows with the other people in the other bat group, and then they go, oh well, we want to do research, and somebody else wants to, oh, we just want to do box checks, and the others are doing like harp trapping and stuff like that. So there are a number of groups in Devon, and it might be the same. So we've got in the chat, Matt's just saying, sorry, who's this? Oh, Mary. Mary's just saying that Matt Parkins does dormouse work in Devon at Fingal Glen, and then and he's able to help with licensing. And then the Devon Bat and Research Group does handling and harp trapping and mist netting, but you have to have a rabies jab for that. Okay, so if you actually want to handle bats, you need to get a rabies jab. That's one thing that you will need to do. Okay. So Hereford Bat Research Group also do trapping. And I think with the bat license, there's different levels of licenses. Okay, with the dormouse and great crested newt, there is just one. But with the bats, they have different levels. So level 1 is where you can just enter a roost with a torch. Level 2 is where you can enter a roost with a torch, but you can also use hand net, and you can handle the bats, and you can use an endoscope as well to stick it in a hole where you think a bat might be. And then level 3 is mist netting, and level 4 is harp trapping. Okay. I've got all of those. So, and I had a few others as well. Like I was a trainer, licensed trainer, and a licensed bat warden as well. So back in the olden days, the way to get into bat work was to become a volunteer bat warden, which is basically where if somebody's got a bat problem, they phone up the bat helpline at BCT, which is Bat Conservation Trust, and they send out a volunteer bat warden, which is usually somebody in a local bat group. So it's a licensed person that goes along to the person's house, and they sort of sort problems out. So for example, when I was a bat warden, I went to a house, and this guy, he was very happy to have his bats, and he had long-eared bats in his loft. And he said, I don't mind my bats, he said, but look at the mess they're making. They're pooping all over my suitcases and my boxes and stuff like that. And I said, you've got long-eared bats, and long-eared bats like to roost along the ridge beam, and all the poops are literally right along the middle of his loft. I said, so if you move all your suitcases to either side of that middle bit, they won't poop on it. And he phoned me up about 2 weeks later. He said, you're a miracle worker. He said, there's not a single poo on the suitcases anymore. All I had to do was move them. So you do things like that where people have got problems with their bats, but they're usually pretty happy to have to have the bats. And actually, it's a surefire way of seeing bats in their roosts as well, because it's a problem. If you're a bat warden or a trainee bat warden, you are going to a bat roost where people are having problems with the bat, and you will see bats. Okay, so I know in Devon it's been difficult to get training on the license on the bat warden training, but it might be worth looking in your own county to see whether that's possible. So usually you approach your county team for Natural England or Natural Resources Wales, and I think just NRW for Wales rather than a county team. I'm not sure though. And to see if they have any bat warden training. Okay, so I'll just put that in chat. And that was actually a really good way to get some general training and to see bats and to go into people's houses and to get lots of experience of internal surveys, which are usually the hardest thing to get experience on. Okay. Then the next best place to get experience is to go to the local consultancies again, and they are doing the most bat work in the country, basically, is the consultants. So if you can look up your local consultancy, every single one of them will be dealing with bats. I can 100% guarantee that. And if you're down in the southwest where I am, it's ridiculous. So it's like pretty much every job we have bats. So if you don't get into bats, then you're missing a trick, really, because and particularly once you get your bat license, you will get a job. Every time I recruited for my consultancy before was just, if they had a bat license, they were hired. I didn't care about anything else. I just because so many of our jobs involved somebody having to go to a building and do a bat a bat visit, that I just would hire somebody with a bat license. So this one is a really good one to get. It took me 3 summers to get mine because you need to have about 100 hours survey experience. And every survey is about 2 hours. So there's 50 surveys right there. So that's 50 evenings you've got to go out, all right, or 50 afternoons if you're doing day visits to roosts. And that's quite a lot, isn't it? And I think you just need to say to yourself, right, I'm going to maybe take the next 2 summers to do this and get as many done as I can, and just let yourself off, because in this COVID situation, the chances of going into people's houses are pretty slim. Also, a lot of the consultancies aren't happy to take trainees because they don't want to take people in their car, or they don't want to be near people, stuff like that. So it is a bit more difficult at the moment, but please don't give up, all right? But the consultants are quite happy to have you, usually helping with emergent surveys and activity surveys. So emergence is when the bats are coming out of a building. So you just stand around the building and you record what comes out. And then also the activity surveys are basically when you're walking around a site to see where the bats are using the site. And it's good experience to actually see bats out and about in the countryside. If you want to do our bat ecology and surveying online course, that we've actually got some video of me doing an emergent survey at one of my students' houses and doing an activity survey with Mary, who's here. Hello, Mary. So if you want to see what Mary looks like, come on my bat ecology and surveying course. So we did one at Mary's Wood, which is not far from where I live, and we saw a few bats, and that was quite good fun. So anyway, the consultants are the ones that are doing most work. Okay, so I definitely recommend that you get in touch with your local consultancies. Just kind of say, I'm really interested in bats. I'm training towards my bat license. It's okay to say that to a consultant. Do not say it in a bat group. Bat groups don't like people that just use the bat group to get their bat license. Bat groups want people that are really keen to care for bats, to talk about bats, to engage with people and tell them about bats and things like that. And they want the group to sort of stay together. They don't want people just coming in, taking what they want and then leaving. Thank you very much, I've got my license, bye. They hate that. So usually it's a good idea to just say, oh, I absolutely love bats, I want to get some experience, and you know, I want to see as many bats as possible, but not actually say, I want to get my license and I want to be a consultant, because that's going to put them right off. All right. So your consultancies are your best bet, because they are literally going out every night of the week doing bat surveys. So has anybody got any bat surveys lined up at the moment?
Yeah, I've got I've got a lot of static setup and takedowns and call analysis and stuff like that coming up. And
Okay.
I've been doing for the last month and a half tree background tree assessments for roosts.
Yeah.
Quite good fun as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So as you come into the survey season, hopefully you'll be doing the actual surveys as well. That'll be good.
We've got some emergencies later down the line, sort of more
Yeah.
July sort of period, but
Yeah.
the way the methodology is working this year is, you know, to sort of streamline it all. It's more endoscoping with visits, and obviously I'm not I'm not got a level 2, so I'm not going to be endoscoping. So
You can go with someone who's got a level 2.
I think
or
it's tree climbing and endoscoping, because it's all
Oh.
trees as well. So they get someone who's a climber. So I need to get a climbing qualification in the time. But that's something I might do over the winter, perhaps.
Yeah. If anybody is into climbing, you really must get into bats, because tree climbing bat workers are the rare as hen's teeth. They really are rare, like a really endangered species. And if any of you are into climbing, then definitely get into bats, because you'll be very sought after, especially once you get your license. All right.
I was also gonna say there's also like a big bat care network as well that works with the BCT, and that's a great opportunity to get bat handling experience as well.
Yeah, so you've done that, haven't you? You do bat ambulance. So if there's an injured bat, you go and collect the bat. Yeah.
With a previous certificate graduate, Mike Bailey, as well. You know, not to plug it, but you know, it's great, because it does give you a good network to sort of work from as well, because everyone else was in the same boat. Everyone else has sort of, you know, progressed in different ways in different directions, and you know, anywhere and everywhere in ecology, there's normally 1 or 2 people who've done the certificate and are like, oh, cool, and you get that extra helping hand then as well.
Yeah. So we do this big training course called Certificate in Ecological Consultancy, and we've got a few students and previous students. So Mary, Kanishka, Stefan, Louise. I'm not sure about Kate, which Kate that it just says Kate. I don't know. It's this year's certificate, Kate. James. So they're all on certificate this year, and then Mark was on it last year. And like Catherine Kilner that I talked about with the Dormouse in Surrey Dormouse Group, she's ex-certificate, and Mike Bailey is doing the bat rescue in Hereford. Is it Hereford?
Yeah, Hereford.
Yeah. So it's like a network of people that have been through what you've been through. In other words, they know what it feels like it's so difficult to get your license, because you've got to organize all these visits and stuff like that, and they just want to help, whereas some people are not quite so helpful. So we've got a couple of other ways that you can get some experience. So definitely get in touch with your local consultancies, and once you've done a couple of surveys with them, you should be able to get some they need to train you up a little bit and be happy that you're okay to do the survey on your own, sort of thing. But once they are happy with you, you should be getting paid to do that. I actually had a girl last year on certificate, and she only told me recently, she graduated last November. She told me recently that she because the course is like £2,000 to do the certificate course, she got an overdraft for £2,000, to pay for the certificate, and during the course of the certificate she earned that amount of money, so she got that back from all the tips that I gave her about how to get survey work. So she actually did end up paying back her overdraft, so that was really good. Okay, so somebody's just asked, before I forget, does a license run out? So licenses, all of these licenses that I'm talking about, expire in 1 year. So every year they expire, and you have to fill out a form which says how you've used your license during the year. So, and you might not have used it. So if you've disturbed a dormouse, for example, or a bat, then you have to give them a list of all the things that you did where you used your license. And then you have to say whether you want to renew your license, and you just say, yes, I do. And then you get your license again. So it's free to get your license, and it lasts for a year. Okay. So another really great way to get some bat experience is to get involved with Bat Conservation Trust, and they do a lot of national surveys. So for example, we've got the National Bat Monitoring Programme, which is basically where there's a whole load of bat roosts where there's good numbers of bats, and they are being checked every year, twice a year, by different individuals or bat groups or whatever. And I went to some absolutely stunning, spectacular sites and saw some real bat spectacles on the National Bat Monitoring Programme. I knew I'd start getting them mixed up. So definitely try and get involved with that one. And I think the best way to get involved with that is usually through your local bat group, because you've got all the bat workers there. There'll be consultants, there'll be little old biddies that look after injured bats, there'll be just postmen and all sorts of people that really love bats. Okay, so this is the place to get to know people. And I think you have to recognize that getting a license is a team sport. You can't do it on your own. You have to engage with people. You have to be there and turn up and never let people down, and be keen and be nice to work with, so that next time they're out they go, oh yeah, I really enjoyed working with Fred, I'm going to call him and go out with him again. And I actually had somebody sitting in my bat ecology and conservation course a few years ago, and she sat there with a bit of a sort of angry face saying it's absolutely impossible to get a bat license. And I said, well, no, it isn't, because blatantly, there's thousands of people that have bat licenses. And she said, well, I can't get anyone to take me out. I keep pestering people to take me out, and they just don't take me out. And I was like, okay. So there was a certificate student sitting next to her, and I said, okay, so this guy here, I think he was called Steve or something like that. This guy Steve, I said, Steve, tell me what you've done this year. So he actually got his bat license in 12 months. Okay, he did it in 1 season. And what he said was, I tried to be super helpful. I tried to be the person that they want to ask out all the time, because I'm such fun to be with. And this grumpy old bag, the way she was talking to us, I was like, do you know what? If you came out with me once and you spoke to me like that, I would never call you again. I'm sorry, but we're going to be going out in the evenings. We're going to be tired. We do not want grumpy people. We want fun people. Okay, so try and be the person that people want to work with. Okay. And this guy, Steve, he was just going, yeah, I try to be really super helpful. I always turn up on time. I'm always available, as much as I can, to do as many surveys as possible, so I can support them as much as possible. So he's thinking about, how can I help the consultant? She's thinking about, how can the consultant help me? Okay, there is a bit of a subtle difference there, isn't there? He's actually trying to be super helpful, and she's asking the consultant to give her something. And why should they? Particularly if she's going to be grumpy about it. So so my big take home really is remember, this is a team sport. You need to be the person that people want to go out with. Be really grateful if they invite you out, be really keen, ask lots of questions, show that you're really enthusiastic, and they will love your energy, and they will love to have you there, and I think that's really important. So anyway, going back to Bat Conservation Trust, they also do some other surveys, like they do a waterway survey for Dorbenton's bats. They also do a transect survey where you just carry bat detectors around and record pipistrelles and noctules. They also do the Bats in Churches project. So there are a number of Bat Conservation Trust projects that you can get involved in. So if you just look up Bat Conservation Trust and then How I Can Help, I think it's called, or something like that, on their website, you'll see that they've got lots of opportunities there that you can help with. And these are all good for your CV. You're usually doing them on your own, or you can take a friend or a neighbour or something like that, take your boyfriend, girlfriend or whatever. But they look good on your CV, but you're not going out with a licensed person. You still need to have some experience of going out with a licensed person. And Mark was mentioning earlier that he was putting out static detectors and doing bat tree roost assessment. So basically just looking at trees to see if they look like they could have bats in them. Don't have too much of that experience on your 100 hours, because really it's not dealing with bats. It's not actually observing bats. It's not doing a bat survey, because you're just looking at potential really, or you're just handling bits of equipment. So try and get your emergent surveys and your activity surveys either through your back group, through your local consultancy, or through BCT. And the local consultancy should pay you for subcontracting work. I mean, when I go out on a bat survey, I nearly always need one person. You can offer your services as a health and safety assistant. So, for example, if I'm doing an activity survey and just walking around a site, I will take my neighbour, my son, my boyfriend, whoever. It doesn't matter. You just need someone there to make sure you're safe. So that's the role that you could do, because you're actually getting some survey experience with a licensed bat worker, and they need you there because they shouldn't work on their own at night. Okay. So anyway, let's see what everybody else is saying. So you will get paid to do your surveys if you're working for your consultancy. So expect to sort of offer your services for a few surveys, maybe until they're happy. And I've done this before. Some people are really good, and I'll just get them to do a couple of surveys with me, and then I'm happy for them to do the survey without me being there. So if you're doing a building, for example, you'll be sort of dotted around the building. So when you first start, you'll be with a bat worker, but when you get more trained up, you'll be in one of the places around the building looking at the bats. So once you get to that point where you can go and do the survey on your own, you should be getting paid for that, really. And you can charge anything from like 12 to about £20 an hour for that. Usually they're 2-hour surveys, so it's not like a load of money, but it does build up, if you're doing quite a few. It's really useful to know about bat ecology. So Mark's just saying that about bat ecology, and I think it's worth looking at doing a bat ecology and surveying course, because we go through the ID, we go through the legislation, we go through the ecology about how they're breeding, how they do echolocation, the different behaviours of the different species, and all those sorts of things. We also do a course on bat mitigation as well, which is about how to deal with bats when you've got bats and you have to do a development license. Also, we've got a health and safety for bat workers and architectural terms for bat workers. So when you start working with bats, you need to know about buildings and about all the different bits of a building and how to describe buildings. So we've got a little short course that you can do. It's an online course called Architectural Terms. We've also got a short course on legislation for bat workers as well. So if you want to do any of our bat, dormouse or great crested newt online courses, if you email me, So I'm just going to write my email now. Ecology Training UK@gmail.com. So make a note of that one. Is I will give you a discount code if you aren't already on our list. But if you want to buy any of our online courses, just get in touch. Say you're on this webinar, and I'll give you a discount of 15% for any of the back courses, or Dormouse or Great Western Newts. Okay. Right, so what else are people saying? There's quite a lot of messages here. Oh yes, good thing to. Right, so you need to know about the ecology, which species use woodlands, which ones roost in buildings, how to tell between myotis and other bats, how to identify a serotine on the wing, and all things like that. So I mean, you might not even know all the names of the bat species when you first start out. I mean, I took quite a while just to learn the different species that we have, and we've got 17 breeding species in this country. So you need to know about 17 different species. So just bear in mind with the bats that you've got to know about 17 different species. It's not like the dormouse and the great crested newt where it's just one species. You have got to learn quite a lot with bats. But they're absolutely fascinating and really worth getting into, and really worth going for your license, even though it can take a little while. But you know, if you can get some practice, you will still get lots of experience, and you can get paid for it as well, which is happy days, really, isn't it? You're going to end up with a license and you're getting paid. So if you do one of our courses, you'll get a certificate for the course, so you can prove that you've done the course. And also, if you're going to get the opportunity to handle bats, like if there's any harp trapping or mist netting going on, then you're going to have to organise your rabies jabs. And normally, rabies jabs are free if you're a bat worker. So once you've got your license, you should be able to just say, I'm a licensed bat worker and I legally have to have a rabies jab. But before you get your license, you don't normally get your rabies jab free. So has anybody got, so what happened with you, Mark? I know you've got your rabies jabs, haven't you? Did you have to pay for them, or? Mark, are you there? Oh, he's disappeared. Okay.
Sorry, my internet was getting a bit funny there. Can I say again, Sue? Sorry.
What happened about your rabies jabs? Did you have to pay for them in the end? Yeah,
so I was in contact with Mike Bailey about getting involved with bat care, but that requires rabies jabs because you're handling bats because of rabies and things like that. But obviously the issue is before you get into bat care, you need to have your jabs to become a bat worker, to become a, you got to be a bat worker to get it for free. So it's like a sort of cyclical thing almost. So, and being in Wales, it's not the same sort of system that I would go through if I was from England. It's a lot better, a lot more. I think becoming a bat worker or getting a license, I think is a bit more accessible in England than it is in Wales, at least.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, just because like working under someone's license isn't as convoluted as it is in Wales. In Wales, you like have to be officially listed under someone's bat license to work under their license, like to do interviews and stuff. So if you want to sort of hang out with someone who's a bat worker, it's a lot harder.
Okay. Yeah.
But for the rabies jabs, what I did, I need to make sure that I remind myself to get my booster now as well this year, if I don't forget. Okay. But yeah, I just basically went to a travel clinic, and I was trying to sort of get it that way because they've got two things, and travel clinics, they're only allowed to do it for travel health or something like that, but they can't do it for professional stuff, which was a shame because that's what I initially said, and then there was a bit of back and forth thing, and then we basically both decided to blag that I was going to go traveling to a country that had bats in it. This is in the middle of the pandemic, mind you. But, I mean, I still had to pay for it, unfortunately. I think it came to about 160, 180 pounds, something like that. Like 60 quid a jab with 3 jabs. But yeah, I was able to just say, oh, I'm going to Mozambique or somewhere, and then, get my jabs in, bish, bash, bosh. And then, it streamlined a lot of other things then, because then I was straight to be a bat ambulance driver. From being a bat ambulance driver, you're on, you sign yourself up for the bat care network with BCT. And then if you get a random phone call in the middle of the day, middle of the night, that's a random mobile phone number, you answer it. It's normally a member of the public that's got an injured bat. And it was very common in the first wave of the pandemic because everyone was at home. So everyone was seeing, if they were, if bats were stranded in the garden or nearby, so people were going out for walks more and seeing it more. So it was a busier year for it as well. But yeah, it means that you sort of, you pick up the bat, you sort of, you take it to the bat carer. But then that also gives you the opportunity. And luckily, because Mike Bailey was also a certificate graduate as well, he was more than happy to sort of show me handling techniques and things like that. And also the bits and bobs with bat care. Like, for example, like the differences between the pipistrelles, but also, more about like bat triage, treating bat injuries, and when you've got to put a bat to sleep and things like that. And, so, and then when you've got a bat that has been put to sleep, he gives you you get more of an opportunity to handle it because obviously the bat's not stressed because it's not alive anymore, unfortunately. Sometimes it's the only thing you can do for them because there's no way of recovering from the injury it's gotten, for example.
Exactly. Okay, so thanks for that, Mark. So Sophie's saying she managed to get her rabies jabs from Boots Pharmacy over it was £100. Is that for all 3 jabs? Sophie there. Oh, okay. So the other thing to make you aware of is that if you want to go for your bat license, you also need to log all your bat experience. Okay, it's really, really important. If you want to email me on Ecology Training UK @gmail.com, then I can send you over a template log. It's just an Excel spreadsheet, and basically you can then fill out all the experience that you've had, and it adds up the hours for you and stuff like that. So I think it's really worth it's worth you getting the bat log, getting in touch with as many different people that do bat surveys as possible, and start getting some experience. So Stefan said he got a free rabies jab but had to step on a rusty nail to get it. Wasn't that a tetanus jab then? Or was it
sorry. Forget that.
Okay, tetanus probably.
You're right.
So the reason why people have to have their rabies jab is because about 10 years ago, a bat worker in Scotland was bitten by a bat that was behaving strangely, and I think he rescued it, and it was sort of hissing and snarling, which is not really normal behavior, and it bit him, and he got rabies and he died. And it sent an absolute shockwave through all of the bat workers, because it was like, oh my God, we could actually die of being bitten by these things. We didn't even know that Britain had rabies until this point. So it's just a precaution, really, and all bat workers, licensed bat workers, have to have a current rabies jab. So you have to prove that you have it as well when you go for your license, when you get your license. So the main ones that have the virus seems to be Dorbenton's bats, which are also called the water bats, and they fly around skimming over water when they're feeding, and those seem to be the most prevalent for rabies for some reason. So maybe if you want to do some bat handling as well, try and get as much experience, like harp trapping, mist netting, if there's a group doing anything like that. And also if you can get experience of like bat rescues and stuff like that, that's a good experience of getting some handling experience. So you can actually go straight to your level 2 license if you have handling experience. So make sure you log everything that you do. I mean, you can log this webinar if you want to. You can log everything that you do. When somebody's actually assessing you, they'll pick out the bits that are really relevant. So I personally want to see 100 hours of internal surveys, emergent surveys, and activity surveys, and nest box box checks and hibernation surveys, the sort of the things that you do with the bat group as well. So just finally on the bats, because I think we've gone over time a little bit, is that I also do a course called Revise and Assess. So it's for assessing people for their bat license. So if you have got your 100 hours and you feel ready to be assessed and you have a signatory, then I'm willing to take you out on a few surveys. Usually try and do them in 1 or 2 days. And I take you out on some internal surveys and some emergent surveys, and I test you on everything that you should know about bats. So everything basically that's in the bat ecology and surveying course, like the ecology, the legislation, rabies, everything really about bats. You should be assessed on all of that before you'll be signed off. So do let me know if you get to the point where you've got 100 hours. Send me over your bat log and we'll get you on the list for the Revise and Assess. And it is a way of getting your second signatory if you're struggling to get your second signatory. And I usually do the course with maybe a maximum of 4 people. So it's usually 2 to 4 people. I can't assess level 2 unless you have a bat that you can bring with you that we can handle. Because I did the last one that I did, the girl, there was 2 people, a guy and a girl, and she was a bat carer and she brought 3 bats with her, and we just played with the bats for half an hour, and then I said, okay, you're competent at handling the bats. So if you can get some bat caring done, then that's a good way of getting that experience. So if you want me to sign you off for level 2, then you need to bring a bat with you because I don't have any. Okay. Yeah, so let me know if I can do anything to help you. My email is ecologytraininguk@gmail.com, and I'm Sue Searle, Principal Ecologist at Ecology Training UK. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. I hope you found it useful. I've got time for a couple of questions if anybody has one. Otherwise, I'm going to sign off. So any quick questions before we finish? Do please feel free to email me and ask me questions and ask me about the courses and stuff and anything else I can do to help you. Okay, so I haven't got a date or a topic for the next webinar, but if anyone has any ideas of something they'd like to hear about, then please let me know. I'll try and come up with something useful. I've also got some previously recorded ones which are on the Ecology Training UK YouTube channel. So different career ones, basically how to get experience, how to set goals and things like that to do with your career as an ecological consultant. So do go and have a look at those if you get a chance. Okay, so thank you so much for this evening, and I look forward to maybe seeing you out batting sometime or on a Dormouse survey. And yeah, all the best and enjoy working towards your licenses.